Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a first impressions, well, early impressions is what I'm calling this. It's not a first impression because I have smelled this before. I've worn it to bed once, but I've never given it a full wear like I have today. So I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts with you guys. If you're not really into fragrance, really into fragrance the way that we're really into fragrance, a first impression on a discontinued fragrance from 1981 is probably going to seem a little strange. If you're the kind of person that's going to say, why are you reviewing a fragrance or talking about a fragrance that I can't just go buy at my local shop? My channel's probably not for you, to be honest with you. This channel is going to be kind of about my journey and the things that I discover. And I did a video yesterday on the year 1981 and how it's one of the best years in perfumery. And this is a fragrance from the year 1981. I didn't include it because I didn't have a full bottle, and somebody actually left a comment in the video saying, hey, you should try this fragrance. And I said, well, actually they said I have the aftershave. I can only imagine how good the EDT is. And I said, I have the EDT because Anuj was kind enough to send me a sample in one of my big hauls. This is called Burberrys for Men. So if you go to Fragrantica and just type in Burberrys with an S, you have to have the S at the end, it will instantly come up as the first option for you to choose. This is a fragrance that's long lost to fragrance history and time. Very few people know about this old Burberry fragrance. It comes with the Burberry bottle with the off-center atomizer that is used in some of Burberry's women's fragrances nowadays. This is a fragrance that came out in 1981, and it's a Chypre, which is my kind of fragrance, okay? And obviously, Anuj is a businessman, so he sent this little 5 ml decant to me. It wasn't full, it was about half full. And I've given it a couple wears. Actually, let me give it a fresh spray so we can talk about it here. Okay, let's let this settle down, shall we? Okay, so, and he sent this to me because obviously he was thinking maybe I'll buy a full bottle if I like it. So very kind of him. Thank you, Anuj. You are a pure gentleman, and I will hype your fragrance website and your store up as much as I can because I think it deserves it. And there's very few people that you meet that have the type of integrity and honesty and trust and love of fragrances like you do. So Burberrys for Men. So I started to make some notes, which I started to make some notes about the fragrance, and then it just kind of hit me that I just feel like I just want to kind of talk about these fragrances. Sometimes when I make notes, I don't really get into the review, and I get lost trying to read them. So I just want to kind of give you my thoughts. So the first thought is if you go to Fragrantica and look at the fragrances that are similar to this fragrance, they are completely crap. They are totally wrong, other than maybe one is a little bit close, but the others that I have 3 of them here I'm going to show you are completely off. But let's do the notes first. So the notes of Burberrys for Men: mint, and mint is a big one. You have to like mint to enjoy this fragrance. Artemisia, juniper, bergamot, lavender, thyme in the top. The mid, carnation, which you know I love, patchouli, which you know I love, vetiver, which I love in a supporting role, which this is, rose, marjoram, geranium, cedar, sandalwood, pepper, jasmine, base, leather, civet, myrrh, oak moss, musk, and amber. Now, when I read those notes, I thought, my God, this is going to be a 1980s civet leathery bomb. It's not. This is a very subdued and very professional Chypre, if you will. It is very respectable, okay? It doesn't push the boundaries as much as I like my Chypres to do. Some of my favorite Chypres are stuff like Diaghilev. Diaghilev starts out in your face, bam, dirty, right? This one doesn't do that. And in fact, the number one fragrance that it is compared to in Fragrantica is a fragrance called Perry Ellis Cologne for Men. Can you see that cologne right there? They reissued this in a bottle that looks almost exactly identical to this, but it doesn't say cologne for men. They switched it to the EDT and reformulated it, and they completely changed the fragrance. So if you can find this, or there's a smaller, like, squat looking bottle that looks like this. This is the vintage from 1985. It has to say cologne. If it doesn't say cologne, you're not getting this version, and this is the one that they're comparing it to. And the notes in this are actually pretty similar. There is this greenness from galbanum and oak moss and leather and civet and all this other stuff, but this starts out like an F-16. Boom, this hits you immediately. It's dirty from the word go. This is going to kind of shock you and take you back a little bit. Whereas the Burberrys starts the exact opposite. It's kind, it's polite. There's this refreshing mint in Burberrys that is in a top note, but it really lasts. Somehow they got the mint to last a long time into the dry down. This is a 7-hour dry down. And the mint is still kind of, it's not prominent like it is here on the one that I just sprayed. Okay, but because now there's more of the leather and the myrrh and stuff like that coming out, which I like. I like the dry down of this fragrance, but the beginning is like this almost, it starts the opposite of Perry Ellis for Men. Perry Ellis for Men starts very dirty in the cologne version, only the cologne version, okay? So again, this is geek perfume talk here. If you're not into the vintages like we are, this video might not really appeal to you, but this one starts out, bam, fast in your face. This one starts out very polite and kind, and then as the 30-minute to 1 hour mark starts to come, that's where it starts to get a little bit less polite, and it really starts to take on that 80s vintage masculine feel, if you will. Somebody mentioned that they sense musk ketone in the base notes comments. Now, one other thing I should mention too before I get into that is that this fragrance, the bottle that you see on from 1981 that you see on Fragrantica is the first version. They reissued it in what they call a second version. If you go to base notes and go to Burberry's list of perfumes, you will see this listed as version number 2. The reformulation happened in 1992. Same fragrance, but they put it in a new bottle and I think a different distributor. That's the one that Anuj had. He said he's never seen the first version or smelled it or compared, okay? Because he's into this stuff too. And so I will just mention that what I'm smelling is not the original from 81. It's from 1992, and the bottle looks a little bit different. The cap is in the middle. You'll see it if you go to base notes. So I don't know if there's differences because I've never compared the two, although there is a bottle of the original from 81 on eBay, but they want like $400 or something, and it's coming from Spain, so you got to pay shipping too, I think, but expensive stuff, let's put it that way, because it's so rare and long discontinued. Now, someone mentioned that there's this musk ketone, note. And I was talking with Yura, who is a perfumer. He mentioned that the average person can only distinguish up to 5 notes. Once it gets past 5, you really can't tell. And in fact, most people can only distinguish 3. That's why fragrances like Joe Malone will only put 3 notes on there. Bergamot, lemon, grape, or whatever their crazy fragrances are. I'm not a big fan of Joe Malone fragrances, but you've seen them where they list 3 notes there. And that's the reason why. Once you get to 4, people start to get a little bit confused. That's why note trees are so important. But somebody said that they smell musk ketone in this fragrance, which is the only musk that has no longer been banned. A lot of nitro musks were banned, not by IFRA, but by world governments because they were finding it. Yura was telling me about this. He said they were finding it in like babies' umbilical cords, and they were finding it in the water supply because it was used in like laundry detergents and stuff like that. So nitro musks got banned. Musk ketone could still be used. The last one that can still be used legally. And there is a big musk in this. I don't know if I would necessarily say, oh, I smell musquito. No, it all kind of blends together very nicely in my opinion. Would I buy a bottle of this? Well, let me show you a couple other fragrances first. Now, this came out in 81, okay? So keep that in mind. 81 is a hallmark year. We talked about some yesterday. Go watch my video if you're not familiar with some of the fragrances from the year 1981. Santos de Cartier, Antaeus, Koros. I mean, we're talking some of the all-time greats, right? And this fragrance is compared to fragrances like this. Darby, one of my favorite Guerlains of all time. I've often said that if I was going to go to a board meeting and go meet the CEO, someone who is a multi-millionaire, someone who's in a position of power, this is what I would wear. This is very elitist without being snobbish. It is, the leather note in this is out of this world, and it kind of makes you search for it a little bit. Same with this. Burberrys for Men has this leather note in the back. The leather doesn't come out and just go, hi, I'm leather. No, it's back there, and it's hiding, and you got to kind of seek it out, you know, and even when you find it, it tries to run away, but it's there. Same with the civet. I was expecting the civet to be this big, in-your-face type civet. It's not. It's not like Koros or Antaeus with the Castoreum. It's very, that's why I say it's a very reserved fragrance. If you're somebody who doesn't want to offend, but you like vintage masculines, this might be one for you to hunt down. For me, I kind of like the, I like a little bit of the outlandishness. That's why I mentioned Diaghilev as one of my favorite Chypres. And Darby is kind of the same way. It is, it's a fragrance that, if you've listened to me talk about this fragrance in the past, I have said things like, if you look at the note tree of Darby, which here, I'll just read it to you real quick. Bergamot, orange, carnation, spices, woods, leather, birch, woody notes, and patchouli. That's from Fragrantica. That's the reformulated one. Let me read you the vintage notes because I believe they are different. So the vintage notes, which this is considered a vintage bottle. This is not the new bottle with the wood, the square wood around it. This one says Artemisia, bergamot, mint, lemon, nutmeg flower, jasmine, rose, oak moss, leather, sandalwood, patchouli, vetiver. So, as far as the closest fragrance that I think this is probably comparable to, this Burberry, Guerlain Darby is probably the closest match. However, there's a big however here. The mint in Burberrys is almost like trying to steal the show for the first half an hour or an hour. And it never really goes away. That mint really lingers on my skin, big time. So this is almost like you could consider this a fresh Chypre. There's snow on the ground in Texas today, so this is probably not the choice to wear for a day like today, but I got the idea since I did the 81 video yesterday. I figured, what the hey, I'd give this one a shot today. Did not mean to rhyme that. And this, even though it has mint and Artemisia, it tends to take a back seat, I think, to the nutmeg, to the sandalwood, the oak moss. There's a beautiful oak moss accord in Darby. You know, you get that horse type leather, and then beautiful masculine vetiver that is not the star of the show that but plays a role. And then you get an old school carnation note, even though it's not listed here. I get a big carnation. Not as big as the new one, because I have both. The new one, the carnation, is turned up because I think that's part of how they built that. How they built that oak moss and leather accord. In the new one, Thierry Vassar used carnation in a brilliant way. And so for me, since I already own a full bottle of Darby, I think Burberrys would be a pass. I don't think I would go spend big money to get a vintage bottle of this. However, I've never heard anyone talk about it, ever. You know, I had to really hunt for information on it. If you like true hidden gems, if you're a collector, Burberrys for Men is one to kind of put on the radar. There's one other fragrance that was mentioned in Fragrantica, and that's this. Elizabeth Taylor's Passion for Men. And this is an older bottle as well. This is from 1989. So now we've skipped forward. We've skipped forward 8 years or so in the future. And look at that atomizer. So 1980s. I love it. Look at that. And this is, I can see why people compare Passion to it, but for me, Passion brings up much more of those heavier cinnamony spices. There's benzoin and styrax here, and it's missing in Burberrys, and it's missing in Derby. You know, I think it maybe hints at Burberrys for Men. But it's nothing but an echo. It's nothing but a shadow. I think Derby is probably the closest thing you could compare this to. But it is interesting that, you know, the House of Burberrys had a fragrance like this in the early 80s, because there was another house from 1981, if you remember me going through some of those fragrances from 81, and it was called Calvin by Calvin Klein. And that was also one, you know, not a lot of people think about Calvin Klein as a perfume house that perfume lovers like myself would love. You know, it's seen as like a cheaper house. You can get 100 ml of Obsession for like $16 now at the discounters. CK1 is cheap as chips. And same for Burberry. Burberry's fragrances are almost seen like mass appealing starter fragrances. Someone in high school would wear them. This is completely different. You know, for a collector like myself, this would be one I would love to have, but due to the fact that money is not unlimited, and I have to be smart with what I spend my money on, since I already have this, I would probably say I would personally take a pass on this. However, if I didn't have this, and maybe I wanted a substitute, okay, because this is not cheap. But now this is not cheap either, is the only thing. But if I could find this at under $100 or something, or $100, and this is $300, $400, $500, these are even going for $700, $800, $900. This bottle is like almost $1,000 now on eBay. It's almost like Patou Pour Homme prices. This in the vintage bottle like this. And so if you are not willing to pay that, and you shouldn't pay that, that is just complete asinine. This might be a respectable alternative, but understand it is much fresher. The mint, the Artemisia really last in this one. You know, once it gets down into the base, and the leather and the civet just kind of peek its head out. You know, they don't really make an appearance. They just kind of slowly peek their head out to let you know that they're there. The myrrh is a little bit more prominent in this, I think, over something like Derby. There's not that big myrrh blast that you get in the base that kind of starts to come out. And then it's even more prominent in a fragrance like this. So if you're looking for big, you know, benzoin, myrrh, resinous fragrances, I'd probably go with this instead. And this is also cheap. But this is just kind of my take. I go through this process. You know, I probably would have went through this process whether I had a channel or not, because I wanted to give this fragrance a full test and a full wear. And also because I love Chypres. I think they're my favorite type of fragrances. I just like my Chypres much more dirty. I like dirtier Chypres. And somehow, even though Burberrys for Men has all these dirty notes, they've managed to keep it clean. I think this would be amazing in the summer. I haven't worn it in the summer, but I just get the feeling it would be amazing in the summer. I also get the feeling that this would be a grower. I think that if I wore this again and again and again, which I might get a couple more wears out of this decant, I could very well fall in love with it. It feels like that kind of fragrance, you know what I mean? But just because money is not unlimited, I would probably say right now I would be at a no. But look it up, get to know it, put it on your radar. It's one that if you're a collector would really stand out. I don't think a lot of people know about this. I'm very, very blessed to have experienced this fragrance. Anuj sent me another sample called Chaps, as you guys know, which I went and hunted down some bottles because I got back to him and said, hey, guess what? I will take that Chaps bottle because this is awesome. And he goes, sorry, it's sold. So, you know, his strategy would have worked on me with Chaps, but not for Burberrys for men. So anyways, just wanted to put this on the radar. I don't have much else to say about it. That's kind of my initial thoughts. I have thoroughly enjoyed wearing it today. It is a very well-constructed fragrance, probably the best constructed Burberry fragrance I've ever gotten my nose on, but you know me, I like the vintage stuff, and this is right up my alley. This is a lot better than a lot of the new stuff Burberry has been putting out. They haven't put out much to talk about as of late. Francis Kirkjohn made a couple high-end fragrances for them. One was called like Antique Oak, an Antique Vanilla or something like that, and they tried to charge $400 or $500 for it. I have samples of those too. I'll do first impressions of those as well. But for the most part, the Burberry house has not done very well on the fragrance side, but this is a big exception. If you said, Ramsey, you get to choose one Burberry, I would choose this over like London. London is much more mass appealing, but for my personality, this would be it. It's just a little bit cost prohibitive at this time, especially since I'm hunting a vintage Charles of the Ritz Kouros, which is not cheap to find, and I'm hoping to secure a bottle in the next month or so. So, you know, sometimes you have to prioritize your spending when you're a fragrance connoisseur. And so I'm going to go ahead and say it was a pleasure wearing this. And thank you for watching the first, I won't call it a first impression. I will call it an early impression. If you have experience with this fragrance, I would love to hear your thoughts. I know it's a rare one, and I know that this fragrance is not one that many people are jumping out of their chair to hear, because not a lot of people even know it exists. But I think the real fragrance connoisseurs will appreciate hearing about Burberrys for Men from 1981. So that concludes this video. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.